right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to, oh, I can't believe it's March already. Welcome to our March Schoolnet webinar using Schoolnet as a performance-based assessment tool. We appreciate all of you taking time out of your Monday to be with us. And I want to go ahead and let you know we are recording. We do post this to our Schoolnet YouTube channel, and I also will email it out to any of the attendees, and it'll be posted on your Schoolnet splash page as well. But did want to let you know that we are recording. All right, Catherine, since you're already sharing, do you mind going to the next slide? Perfect, thank you. My name is Rebecca Stokes. I'm the product manager for NCDPI with anything Schoolnet related. My email address is right here on slide 2, rebecca.stokes@dpi.nc.gov, and I highly encourage you to use that email address for any Schoolnet questions that you may have. I am here to support you any way I can. And we are extremely fortunate to have Catherine Simone with us as well. Catherine, if you want to introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. Catherine Simone. I'm the implementation manager from Pearson for North Carolina. Nice to see all of you this afternoon.
Awesome, thank you. And if you don't mind going to the next slide for me. Perfect, thank you. All right, so just a little bit of housekeeping first. So with this being a live webinar, there will be CEU credit given for attending the entire hour. It is 0.1 CEUs. So just remember that you have to have 10.1 credits to equal 1 hour. And your district can decide what type of credit it is given. So I will send anyone that attends our live webinar an email in the next few days, and it'll have your certificate. It will be a pretty much a blank certificate that says the title of this session and the date, and you'll have your name filled in, but then you have to submit it to your district following your district's guidelines, and they reserve the right to determine what type of credit it is. You can, of course, give them a summary of what the session was about if you have if you're requesting a certain type of credit, but it is up to your district as to what type of credit that is going to be. Okay, let's see if you can, perfect, thank you. And then one other thing with housekeeping, we are using Teams webinar, which does not allow you to unmute, but you can use the chat feature. So we highly encourage any questions that you have to use the chat or the Q&A. We have found that some districts have some security settings in place that block the chat. So if that's the case, then please use the button right beside it, which is the Q&A. And if for some reason both of those are blocked for you, then please refer to slide 2 with our email addresses, and you can email us any questions that you may have. We are happy to get those answered for you, but hopefully you all are in districts that do not have the chat feature disabled, but please feel free to use that throughout our session. And I am going to ask, let me put this in the chat real quick. Catherine, can you refresh the slide deck and go back to slide 1 for me? And if you don't mind refreshing. There we go. I have put a link to the webinar that Catherine is showing right here. I'm also putting in the chat, but the reason why I wanted Catherine to go back to this slide was in case the chat is blocked for you and you cannot get the code, I did want you to be able to see it off of the screen. So we are using the NCDPI short link manager. So the backslash is 67NPX, but I do have it in the chat, and hopefully you are able to access that to get to our slide deck. All right, Catherine, I'm sorry. If you want to, I think we were on slide 5, which is just thank you so much for being here. Again, I know that this is time out of your day when you could be doing 1,000 other things to benefit your students in the classroom. So I appreciate that this is one of those things. And with that, Catherine, I'm going to turn it over to you for our goals for today. And you are muted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
Can
Now we can
you
hear you.
can you talk about this slide because I put the slide
Oh,
afterwards. I'm so
yep, I
sorry.
sure can. That's probably why I went to it. Apologize. All right, so for today, we highly encourage you to follow along with us in your Schoolnet platform. So just remember to do that, you're going to go to NC Ed Cloud, the same place where like you would go to Power School if you're still a Power School district to do your attendance, or you would go to Infinite Campus. It's got all of the apps in it. If you are a Canvas district, it's the same place where you would access that as well. But at the bottom of your homepage in NCA Cloud, you're going to see a red circle with a white house. That is Schoolnet. Hopefully you all are familiar with that already, but just in case you're brand new to the platform or a new teacher and have not used it yet, wanted to make sure you knew how to access it. And again, you can of course follow along with Catherine on the slide deck, but we encourage you to be following along in your platform as well. We do have a training site just in case anyone on this call does not have access to Schoolnet. That is on slide 8. We do have a link for you and a username and password to the training site just in case you do not have access to the platform but still want to be able to follow along. And again, that is on slide 8. And I'm going to put the slide deck in the chat one more time just so you have access to it.
Okay,
All
and
right.
that brings us to today's agenda. So we are going to be talking about performance-based assessments or measures. I know some content areas call them performance-based measures. Also answer key only assessments that are very similar in nature. So we decided to put those in here with that. And I'll give you a couple use case examples. A sample that I created for the CTE folks, and then show you how to create an assessment and rubrics with open response items and scoring. I think we had a couple.
Interrupt you real quick. I'm sorry.
Yep, questions and people with
Yeah,
hands up. So let's see
it
what's
was
going
me.
on.
I put my hand up.
Oh, okay,
I did.
sorry.
I did have someone in the Q&A tell me that they were getting a lot of feedback from me. Are you hearing any feedback
I
when I
am not.
talk? Okay, so I just wanted to check before I tried to give them some tips with their audio. So okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there feedback when I'm talking?
Nope,
No?
you
Okay.
are nice and clear.
Okay. All right. Then I'm going to continue on here. I am going to mute my camera because my computer works better that way. So I'm going to turn off my camera for now. And I will be starting with the PowerPoint deck, the slide deck, but then I will be moving into the training site to demonstrate the how-to and ClickPass. So I just pulled a little bit of research on performance-based assessments, just a method of evaluating students and how they can demonstrate their skills or understanding by creating a product, performing a task, or solving a problem. Okay, so keep that in mind because when we're talking about these performance-based assessments or measures, here's a few examples. A science task, building a simple machine. That would be something that the students would be doing outside of Schoolnet. It would be something that would be 3D in nature. They would have a set of directions and we could actually score their process within Schoolnet. It could be a language arts task, such as a podcast. Um, it could be a social studies task, such as creating a historical newspaper. Also, I like to give the examples of our other content areas like physical education, art class, and music class. I've worked with a band teacher in the past at high school level that had a performance-based assessment that he used during class time where the students came in. It was aligned to what they were working on during the day and on that class period, and he was able to score the students' performance within the class itself, and then have the data within Schoolnet. So I just wanted to point out a couple of areas that it could be useful. An answer key only assessment, while it is not performance-based in nature, I like to give the example of a driver's education test. So I had a school where they would give the practice driver's ed test. Well, the questions were secure and where it was not permissible to put the questions within Schoolnet. However, they could create a test that had answer spaces for all the questions on the paper driver's ed test. So the scenario is I would give my students the paper test to read the questions, and they would just click off their answers within Schoolnet. So I like to give those couple of use case scenarios so you can see where we're going with this training, and hopefully that gives you some ideas in how to use this in the future. Do we have a Q&A? I see one little dot there. I don't know what that is. Oh, that was the feedback one. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it was just me,
okay.
Me commenting on
Yep.
it.
Okay. So this is just a little comparison here on this slide, just to give you the difference. In the PBA, the students can log into Schoolnet to submit evidence of work. So for instance, even though it may be that 3D simple machine that they built, they could take a picture of it and upload it to their workspace if needed. The teacher is the one that is logging in and scoring the student's work, whether the work is evidenced in Schoolnet or outside of it. But instructions, a prompt or question of what the students are doing if they're logging in should be included. We always need to have standards. You can score on rubrics or points, and I'll show you that in a minute, and then the scoring options. For the answer key only, we just need the standards, the points or rubrics, and the scoring options, okay? And you'll see what I'm talking about with those in a minute. So let's start with the performance-based assessment. And this particular performance-based measure was created a couple years ago as an example for Health Science 2 for the CTE folks. It's all open response items. There's a rubric for each item. There's a place where the students can see exhibits, which are basically a copy of the rubric, and there's clear directions for each task. So this particular screenshot you see here are the directions for the student's task. It tells them each part of their portfolio, how many points they have possible, and the total points that they could earn. On the next screen, I have an example of just the first task that the students would be completing. For this one, they would be creating a cover letter. And there's a link in the question that takes to the CTE site that hosts this little exhibit button over here. When the students click on it, they get to see the full rubric for which they're being scored. And here they can either copy and paste their cover letter, or if they're handing it in someplace else. Okay. Before I go to the training site, I just want to talk about one more thing, which is the difference between points and rubrics. So you can have an open response item, and it can be scored from anywhere from 0 to 999 points. That's possible. And you can include up to 2 decimal places. Okay. If you're scoring with points, you would need to attach the standards to the question. If you're using a rubric, the points and the standards come into the open response question from the rubric. Okay, so that's just two things to consider when you're setting up your performance-based assessment. So let me click out of this and go to, real quick, I will show you, this is that Health Science 2 test. If I preview it as the student here, Rebecca, just let me know if my pop-up screen doesn't show. I think it did though.
Sure will.
We're
Yep,
good.
you're showing it.
Okay.
You're good.
Great. So this was that first screen I showed you. The students would go here. They could answer their response here, put their cover letter in. They can look at the rubric, read how they're being scored, and I could zoom my screen in a little bit. Go on to the next question, answer this one. There's a separate rubric for part B that they can see, and so forth. So I just wanted to show you what it looked like from the student's perspective there. And then, let me just hang on one second, move this over here. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to dig in and we are going to start building a little assessment here. Okay, so sorry, I'm jumping around on my screens a lot, but I am logged in as, I believe this is a 4th grade teacher. And here is my home screen. All right. And what I'm going to do is I have chosen as this 4th grade teacher to create my performance-based assessment with a rubric. So I am going to go over here. I need to create my rubric first, assessments, items, rubrics, and passages, create. Over here to create rubric. And then you are going to see that I get the option to group the responses. So if I select a grouping option, if the grouping option is enabled like this, okay, then I select a score entry to determine where the standards are aligned. So do I want the standards on each trait, or do I want them in groups? Or you can choose not to disable them, not to enable the grouping. So basically, when I get started, you're going to see what this looks like. So I'm just going to hit choose so you can see. Just like with a test, I would have to give it a name. So I'm going to call this my sample rubric. I have to choose the subject that I'm working on. So I'm going to do some science with this one. And since I'm a 4th grade teacher, I'm going to take 4th grade. You can use a level or points if you want in the rubric. An example of a level would be, I have seen the Lucy Calkins writing rubrics are based on levels. And I've created a few of those in other sites before. Or that would just say the student is performing at a level 1, 2, or 3, or I can do points. For this demonstration, I'm going to use points. My rubric is in English, so I can leave that alone. Down here, these are the values for which I'm going to score my students. I like to, because I'm just creating them and I'm not making it as elaborate. And this is a 4th grade science lab. I might say 1 is advanced, 2 is approaching, and 3 is beginning. You can make that anything you want. I just had these pre-saved in my cache just so I could do this quickly. If you want, you can add another column If you don't need another column or you want to get rid of a column or a row, there's always a trash can, so you can get rid of that. The next thing I like to do is I like to select my standards. So I've already decided that this was fourth grade science, and I'm just going to look at, let's do Earth systems here. Okay, oh, perfect. There's 4 standards here. I'm going to click the first one that happens to deal with carrying out an investigation. I'm aligning this first row of my rubric to that particular standard. If I hover over it, it says carry out investigations to classify minerals. So I am going to put a little label on this, classify minerals, because I'm going to take it right from the standards. And this is going to be lab to classify minerals. You can make it anything you want. I am just using the standard because it's easier for me. At this point, the description of what would be considered advanced, you can leave it a period if you want, but if you want to make this more explicit, you're going to see things, and I'm going to duplicate my screen right here because I have one pre-made, so I don't have to type all this up for you. And oh, come on, there we go. And I can show you what this looks like. So I did this one on art. I did 4 categories. I did advanced, mastered, progressing, and beginning. I chose my standard here. This one was identify successful solutions to artistic problems. This was based on creativity and originality, solutions to artistic problems. And you can see here that I put some definitive text to describe what I wanted the students to do to show that they were advanced for each one. Okay, so I would continue like that. And the great thing about rubrics, just so everyone understands, it is a little bit of work in the front end, but then you can consistently reuse these rubrics, or make a copy of them or modify them, take out a row, a column, or change the standard, and reuse them over and over again. Okay. So back to this one, whoops, I was creating. Once I have everything filled in here, okay, I'm just going to go down. I can add rows if I want, all right, and keep going with that one. But let's just say I have this one finished. And back here, you would click Save to Bank. And you had seen on my home screen, I saved it to my personal bank. So if you're working on this with other 3rd grade teachers or 4th grade teachers, you could create an item bank and save it to a common bank, or
Hey,
you can
Catherine.
save it. Yes, sorry.
No, you're good. I thought you were finished with your sentence. I'm sorry. Is there a way to print a hard copy of the rubric after it's created?
Let me go over here to this one and save. I believe this, I copied this. I did because I put the PDF in the test. And I think what I did was I took a screenshot of this and put it in a Word document to create not I think, I know I took a screenshot and created a PDF of it that way.
Okay,
Um,
perfect. All right, thank you.
yep. Because you need the PDF, not a Word document, to upload it as a reference sheet, which I'm going to show you afterwards. Okay. All right. So now I have my rubric all set here. Okay. I've created it. It's in my bank. I followed all those steps and it's ready to go. So then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to close this. this. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to create my test and put it in my test. So I'm going to say, if you have created tests previously in Schoolnet, you know we use the manual test. I'm going to do this very quickly because I'm hoping that people have created a test before. And I'm going to call this Art PBA sample. This one was fine in performing arts. It was 4th grade and it was visual arts. There you go, that I used. I'm going to generate my test. I'm going to author new items because this is going to be an open response item I use. Okay, so at this point, when my next screen opens, I will be selecting the open response item, which is right here. Why am I doing that? Because that allows for the rubric to be attached. If your students are going to be logging into Schoolnet, then you would want to put some directions here, some information, something that is telling them what to do. If they are logging in, you would also want to consider using the rich text formatting, since this is not necessarily, this is an art test. I would want the children to be able to spell check. If they wanted to use the equation editor, they could. So keep in mind a couple of those things. If there are additional directions you want to attach, you could attach them as a passage up here. And then let's just say my entire question is complete the way I want it. I mentioned before, you have the option of adding points. So if I wanted to make this 12 points, I'm going to demonstrate both methods here. I would put my point value in, and then I would need to go down here and select my standards, okay? And put a standard or two in for this particular question, all right? If I am not using points and I want to use my rubric that I just created, I'm going to go up here to select rubric. And I can go to the bank. I put mine in my personal bank. And here I have my elementary art rubric that I created. Over here, I have a blue button that says attach. I add it to my question, okay? And now you can see that point box is gone. Now I have the elements of the rubric I created. If I want to see the rubric, I can click on it here and open it up again. All right. Then what I love about using the rubrics, and I mentioned before that you can use them over and over again, is that, let's say for this first question, I am focusing on that creativity and originality. So I want to weight these points to double, okay, the other two categories. Maybe when I use it the next time, I'm going to weight their effort and perseverance. You can double, triple, whatever you choose. And as you can see, it recalculates the points here to the right and changes the maximum value. Now, I know we could say, wait a minute, I want this to be a 100-point test, okay, or a 100-point question. Then you would just change your weights to show 100 points in the total, all right? The next thing I want to point out about the fact that I uploaded this rubric or attached this rubric is now all the standards that I already put in the rubric are now aligned to this question. and the question is ready to go. Okay. If I wanted to upload that exhibit for my students, I could go here, upload, and attach my rubric. Let me see if I still have this saved on my I don't think I saved it. Sorry. But you would take a file and just attach it there, and it would show up in the exhibits as I mentioned. I don't think for this you would need any tools or manipulatives, but one thing I do recommend is if this is not a My Classroom test and this is being pushed out at a school level or district level, then you may want to add scoring instructions for the teachers, okay, in addition to the rubric. That's an option there as well, okay? All right, I'm going to pause there for a minute and see if anyone has any questions regarding what we've gone through so far. Okay, I don't see any in the chat, so I'm going to go back over here.
Sorry,
I'd
Catherine, I
shown
thought
you.
I had unmuted, but no, we didn't have
No,
any in the
it's
Q&A
fine.
either.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Just want to make sure. Okay. I'm just scrolling through the slide deck to make sure. Okay. So I have this ready. I'm going to return to my test details. I'm going to save it. If I want, I can add another question at this point. I can add another open response question. I can go back in here. I can select that rubric again. And add it to my second question. And now, just to demonstrate, I'm going to weight the effort and perseverance here. So let me give you an example of why maybe I would add 3 questions. Maybe this is a project that the students are doing at over the course of 3 different classes or a week or something of that nature. And as the students complete each component of the project, you could go in and score it. So component 1 would be question 1, component 2 would be question 2. So you could use it in that way to score a multi-part project, we'll say. Okay, from there, let me just grab, I had a bunch of assessments, so I'm gonna save. Okay. Don't mind the magic. I already scheduled this one, so I could show you how to score them. So this particular test is the same art test. I attached my rubric. I scheduled it. My students did their art project. 7 out of 21 students logged in. I kind of, oh, this was with points. So I did 1 with points and 1 with a rubric. So here the students logged in. I put some answers in there. We'll say they took the test and you hit score. And remember, this is out of 16 possible points. So I scored the first couple of students as an example to get a report. Let me jump down here and score another student. Even though it says this student has not started, this particular test was maybe one that they did not log into. But I can go down here. I can say, all right, here's the rubric. I put that in as my scoring instructions for the teachers. Maybe this student got 10 out of 16 points. And I might say, good work or something like that in their comments, okay? And then I go up here and I can save the results. And now I've scored a performance-based assessment with points, Okay, let's go back and grab one. Oh no, what happened there? I went the wrong way. Sorry. Let me go back to test details. Let me get the one with the rubric. Okay. Let me make sure I got the right test. Sorry. I did. Okay. So for this particular test, now this one has a rubric. So I want to demonstrate how to score this. I scored this first child. So I want to show you what it looks like after I score it. This effort was 2 times the points. Here are my options. If I want to see the full rubric, I can click here. If I like this side-by-side scoring layout, so I can, if the child inputted something, I can see it there. Then I can choose their points and scroll down. If you prefer the default scoring, you can use that. Let me go to a child that was not scored. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to say, oh, they got a 2 in this category, a 3 here, and maybe a 4 here. Again, I can put a comment. Good work. And then I save the results. Okay. And so in those 2 methods, I am able to score via rubric or points, if I choose to, the student's test and go through there. So let me just show you what that looks like when I look at the reporting.
And I have a question for you whenever you have a moment.
No, go ahead.
So someone asked if you could please show how to adjust the layout.
Of the scoring
Um,
or the rubric.
I'm thinking the rubric, but I don't. I'm going to see if they'll post a clarifying if they mean the scoring or the rubric, but I'm assuming the rubric. Oh, let's
Was
see.
that in?
Yes, the scoring.
Oh, the scoring. Okay, let me go back to that test. So I hit score, and then I'm going to take this student down the bottom. Okay, so the one view, this is the default view. Right here, there's this little button that says side-by-side scoring layout. When I click that, it changes. And now I can score this way. If I want to look at the full rubric, I can, or a quick score view, and save results. If I want to go back to the default scoring, I just click default view, I click there. Did that answer that question?
I believe so. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right, let me show you what that looks like in a report. So I'm going to go to my reporting dashboard, and let me just get rid of this and go to Fine and Performing Arts. So I have my 2 tests that I just scored, the one that was scored with points and the other one with rubrics. The one scored with points will look like any other Schoolnet test. You're going to see, because the students didn't log in, this timestamp is the timestamp of when I forced the scoring of it, okay? If the students log in and submit, then the timestamp will reflect when the student clicks submit, okay? It's just a little bit of a clarification because with a lot of performance-based assessments, our students are not logging into Schoolnet and we are just scoring them, okay? But all the other reports for point scored assessments will look the same as any other Schoolnet test. You're going to see the standards, the item analysis. Now remember, I only have one question, so I'm not going to really get too much of an item analysis for that one. okay? But let me go back and show you the difference on what it looks like when oh, my one question there for my points, okay? Let me go back and show you what it looks like when I am using the rubric. So here again, this is my summary in the scoring. You can see the timestamp of when I scored the students. In the standards analysis, because my one question had 3 standard alignments, I now see in the standards analysis, I see a little bit more robust reporting where I can see how my students did across all the standards within the rubric that I used. Okay. The other report that I like to look at is the item analysis. Now I know the students didn't log in, but when I look at this question in the item analysis, and you'll see when it loads, you are going to see a little, so here's my item. Okay, if the students logged in, I could click on this little piece of paper and I could see their response here. I could see their performance on the rubric and how I scored them, and also any comments that I left for that child. Okay. But I also get the added benefit if I don't want to click into each student, I can sort the results based on each component or trait in my rubric. So if I want to just see the, the creativity and originality in lowest to highest order, I could sort that column, or I could look at the effort and perseverance and sort that column. Okay, so it gives you just a little bit extra with those reporting features. Okay, I'm going to pause there for a moment and see if we have any questions. Sorry, I'm using multiple screens.
Yeah, no, I'm monitoring the questions and we do not have any.
Okay, great. All right, perfect. Okay, so the first thing that I did was I created a performance-based measure assessment. I created my rubric, I attached my rubric, I took my test, and I scored my test. Okay, and then I looked at the results. Now I'm going to take you to that answer key only assessment, which is a slightly different creation. You could still use a rubric if you want it, but I'm going to go down here to assessment. I'm going to go to test. I'm going to go to create. And now you see I actually have a category for answer key only. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to give my test a name. And I already used that, so I'm going to call it sample 2. I'm going to pick my subject, and it could be anything. I'll just use ELA. I'm that 4th grade teacher again. Okay. It's a My Classroom test because as a teacher, that's all I have access to. But if I had leadership, I could make this a school level or a district level test. I'm going to select my standards document. And then what makes life really easy is once you select your standards document is to select the standards that you will be using for this test. So if I go here and let's just say I'm doing reading and I'm doing informational, and let's just say I'm going to pick a couple of these. Okay, we'll just pick 4. I'm going to select my standards. Now they're in my standards template. And remember I mentioned that driver's ed test? If the questions aren't secure and you just want to upload a paper or PDF copy of your test, you can do that here. You would click here, locate your test, open it, attach it, and save it here. The next thing that's important on this screen is to choose the number of questions you're going to have in your test. And I'm going to say 10, right? And then I say create my blueprint. Now, my test is halfway set up, basically. Okay. But now here, I have that paper test that my students are using. If I want, let's just say this was math and I wanted them to enter a number, I could change it to grid it. I would just have to put what the answer is, give it a point, and select which one of those standards it aligns to. If it's multiple choice, I just select the correct answer, give it a point, and my standard. If I do true, false, once I select the correct answer in a multiple choice or true or false, it defaults and assigns 1 point. If you want to make it 2 points, you can. Pick a standard, and I move on. I think there is inline response. So for gap 1, you would have to say what the answer choice was. This one's a little trickier for students, but if you want to use it, that's there. You could do all or nothing scoring, which means they have to get both drop downs correct to get a point, or they can get a point for each one. And then you would go through and just finish out these questions. Make sure you choose a correct answer, a standard, and just gonna fill these in real quick. And then that's it. My test is ready to go. I can save and go to test details. And here, if I preview this as a student, when my students log in, remember, they're looking at the piece of paper and they're going to answer the question here. They're going to just answer their questions as they're looking from the paper. Okay. When they finish, at the end, they submit, and the results are automatically scored and go back into Schoolnet for you to view in the reporting dashboard. Let me just make sure. I think I got those pieces in there, and I'm going to pause for a minute and see if we have any questions or comments.
We did have a question. I was able to answer it with text, but I think it would benefit for them to see it because I'm not able to upload an image to the Q&A. But can you show in the assessment tab where someone would click to create the answer key only?
Oh, here. Assessments, test, create, answer key only. Is that what we were looking for?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
And one other question that I answered, but I just want to confirm. There is not an ability for students to record responses via audio, correct?
No.
Yeah, I said no, but I was like, let me just,
No.
double check. But I was 99.9% sure that it was no.
No, sorry.
And then we just have one comment that says this saves teachers so much time on grading. Yes, we agree.
Okay, well, that's good to know. All right. Well,
Right, those were the only two.
I did pretty good. Oh, I was worried.
You did. I mean, it's 450. Like, you did really good. let's see here. All right. Well,
I'm reading through the chat and making sure I didn't miss anything.
yeah, you're good. And I'm going to share my screen because it looks like someone is typing one now.
Yep,
So
no
those might
problem.
be questions for you to be able to answer. So while some of you are putting your questions in the chat, wanted to let you know, let me go through all of Catherine's slides. There we go. That again, we say thank you so much for being with us today. Our email addresses are on slide 2 as well as slide 48 for any questions that you might have that come up. We are going to stay on the call for any questions that you would like to put in the chat or in the Q&A. We are monitoring both. But do want to let you know that next month, April, yes, that will be our last Schoolnet webinar for this school year because we know how crazy May gets. But that one will be on formative assessments. But for anyone that does not have a question for Catherine or myself, then we greatly appreciate your time today and hope that you have a great rest of your day as well.